Hello, in this session we will discuss postulates of quantum mechanics. We will be discussing 5 basic postulates of quantum mechanics and we will use those postulates to understand various quantum mechanical systems. Various quantum mechanical system means particle in a box, then harmonic oscillator problem, rigid rotor problem and hydrogen atom problem. So the first postulate goes like, the state of any quantum mechanical particle is defined by a state function psi, and psi is a function of position vector and time. Further, it says the probability of finding any quantum mechanical particle in a volume element dx, dy, dz around a particular point r is given as psi star psi. Psi star is the complex conjugate of the wave function or state function psi. It can also be written as psi square dx, dy, dz. So when psi is a real function, we can directly take square of it. Otherwise, it can also be written as psi square d tau, where d tau is dx, dy, dz, that is the volume element. Further, the postulate states that if time is not a variable, means if this wave function is independent of time, then we can define the state of any quantum mechanical particle by using the time independent wave function, where the small psi is function of only r, the position vector r. Further, r can be resolved into 3 components like x, y and z. The acceptable wave function must satisfy 3 conditions. This is the important property. Each acceptable wave function must satisfy 3 conditions. And what are the 3 conditions? The wave function must be square integrable. The second condition is the wave function must be single valued. And the third condition is the wave function must be a continuous function. We'll discuss all these 3 conditions shortly. So it is important to note that any volume element multiplied with the wave function, square of the wave function gives probability. So by this logic, we'll get, if we'll take only the square of the wave function or the complex conjugate and its wave function, then it will be called probability density. In short, I can also write psi star psi d tau is probability, whereas psi star and psi gives only the probability density. It is important to note probability of finding the particle at any particular point may vanish. It may be 0. The probability of finding any particle at a particular point may be 0, but the probability of finding the particle in an interval, in a finite interval, is not 0 always. Now we will discuss two basic difference between a classical mechanical wave and a quantum mechanical wave. The wave amplitude in classical mechanics is given as psi as a function of position and time. So what does that mean? That means, suppose we take water wave or sound wave, the amplitude, the wave function itself determines height of wave or the height of wave as a function of position or time. Means the wave function itself informs about amplitude of the corresponding associated wave. Whereas in quantum mechanics, the wave amplitude itself has no direct physical significance. To obtain any physical significance, we have to take its square of the wave function multiplied by the volume element, so that we can find out the probability associated with that particular quantum mechanical particle. Then every wave function must be normalizable. What is the meaning of normalization? Normalization means, suppose a particle is confined to a one-dimensional space. We are considering only one-dimensional space in the infinite extent, minus infinity to plus infinity. So what is the normalization condition? This means the particle must be present somewhere in the whole range considered. So if I take psi star psi and the volume element multiplied, then this is essentially the probability condition. So there should be some probability of finding the particle in the range minus infinity to plus infinity, and that is given as 1. So if this equation 19 condition is satisfied, then we will call that the wave function is normalized wave function. Suppose any wave function is not normalized, suppose phi is my wave function, any wave function. So again I am taking probability phi star phi and dx in one dimensional only. Suppose I get any value a, I am not getting 1, I am getting any value a, so I can say that that my wave function is not normalized. In such a condition, I have to normalize the wave function. So how do I do that? If I divide each wave function by root over of a, then I'll get, if I do the same normalization condition, I'll get back value of 1, and at that condition I can say that my wave function has been normalized. So normalization is an important condition associated with any quantum mechanical wave. So psi xt must satisfy the following three conditions to ensure that it represents possible physical state. All the wave functions are not acceptable. Only those wave functions which satisfy the following three conditions will be acceptable as a quantum mechanical wave. So we'll see what are the three conditions, three major conditions. The wave function cannot have an infinite amplitude over finite interval, means the wave function must be limited. It cannot have infinite amplitude in a finite interval. What does that mean? If we relate this condition to normalization condition, we can say, suppose our wave function is not normalized, we are getting a value of a. So the a should never be infinite. If a goes to infinite, then the wave function cannot be normalized. When a is less than infinite, then only the wave function can be normalized, and this condition is called square integral condition. This function must be satisfied for all the state function or for all the quantum mechanical waves. The second important condition is the state function or wave function must be single valued. Suppose let's consider a function phi x is equal to sine inverse x. This in the range -1 to +1. So what will happen, we will get many values of this function. For x is equal to 0, plus or minus pi, plus or minus 2 pi, plus or minus 3 pi, and n is just an integer. So we'll get many possible values are possible for this function. So such kind of functions are not acceptable in quantum mechanics. The third important condition is the function must be continuous. A function fx is said to be continuous at any point a if it satisfies the following three conditions. Fx should be defined at this should be a, not x. Fx should be defined at x. Now suppose we are more interested in point a, then when x tends to a, then the function should be existing at point a. One more condition is when x tends to a, fx, the function should be equal to fa. So these are the conditions that this essentially means that the function is continuous at any point a. Further, the second derivative of function must exist, because the Schrödinger equation is a second order differential equation. So if our function is to be behave properly, then its second derivative must be existent. The second derivative of the function must exist, so that the Schrödinger equation will behave properly. So what is this continuous and discontinuous function? We'll understand through some examples. Suppose consider a function phi x e to the power minus x square divided by 1 plus e to the power 1 by x. Now when x value increases, the numerator will decrease significantly. The numerator will decrease and denominator is just 1. So the function vanishes. When x value increases, the function vanishes. So this is not a appropriate function or we cannot treat this function as a wave function. So similarly, we will discuss some continuous functions. Y is equal to sine x is a continuous function. It continues. There is no gap in the function. Similarly, one more continuous function is y is equal to x square. As the value x increases, y will also behave as a continuous manner. We will discuss some discontinuous functions. Y is equal to 1 by 1 over x minus 1. So if I take x is equal to 1, my function will become discontinuous. At x is equal to 1, the function becomes discontinuous. Similarly, one more function, x square minus 1 over x minus 1. Here also at x is equal to 1, y is non-defined. There is no value of y. So this is also a discontinuous function. So such kind of functions are not acceptable functions. Now we will discuss postulate 2. Corresponding to every observable, there is a linear Hermitian operator, or for every measurable property of a system, there exists a corresponding linear operator in quantum mechanics. So for every observable, every physical observable in classical mechanics, there exists linear Hermitian operator in quantum mechanics. So we are getting two new terms. One is linear operator and one is Hermitian operator. We'll discuss what is linear Hermitian operator. Observable is anything which depends upon position and momentum of the system. So momentum square, kinetic energy, potential potential energy, total energy. These are observables in classical mechanics. So their corresponding operators in quantum mechanics are as follows. Momentum operator is minus IH cross or IH bar dou by dou x. Similarly, momentum squared is minus IH bar square by dou x square. Similarly, kinetic energy operator is minus h square by h bar square by over 2m dou square by dou x square. We are considering only one dimension, that is x dimension. We are not considering the three-dimensional case. Similarly, total energy is given as kinetic energy plus potential energy operator. Now, what is linear operator? Linear operator can be defined as these are the two conditions of linear operator. They are essentially same, one and same. Suppose there is an operator and two functions. Each function is multiplied by constant coefficients C1 and C2. So if this condition is satisfied, then we call that operator A as a linear operator. C1 and C2 are constant as I mentioned. Now differentiation and integration operator are linear in nature, whereas square operator is non-linear. We'll see how square operator is non-linear. We'll see how differentiation operator is linear in shortly. We'll see how differentiation operator is linear in nature. But now we'll see how square operator is not linear. Suppose we take square of this operation C1 f1x, C2 f2x. F1x and f2x are two functions and C1 and C2 are two constant coefficients. So if I do that, suppose this is term A, this is term B. If I take square of that, I'll get a square b square plus 2ab. But this is the actual operation value I am getting. So this is not satisfying our condition, the linear operator condition. Now when this operation could have been linear when we are getting this value C1 square f1 square plus C2 square f2 square. If we could get this value, then only the operator will be linear, but we are not getting this value, rather we are getting some extra terms. That's why square operator is not a linear operator. Similarly, the same thing here, C1 and C2 are not there. Then if this second condition is also satisfied, then the operator A is called linear operator. Now here we will see how differentiation operator is a linear operator in nature. Now we will consider the two functions f1 and f2 to be x square and e to the power 2x, e to the power minus 2x. So my two functions are x square and e to the power minus 2x. So I'll use the differentiation operator. So if I do this, what I am getting, 2x plus minus 2e to the power minus 2x. So this satisfy the condition of linear operator condition. So again I can say that the differentiation operator is linear in nature. Similarly, the integration operator will be linear in nature, but square operator is not linear in nature. Now what is Hermitian operator? Suppose two functions are there, two wave functions are there, one is psi and one is phi. Suppose I do an operation where I take the probability of the wave function of the two wave functions phi star operator, and operator acts on the second wave function, that is psi. Now this is one type of operation. Now when this operation becomes equal to the Hermitian conjugate of the operator. Now what is Hermitian conjugate of the operator? Operator taken its conjugate, and that condition is called the Hermitian condition. Now it is important to mark these two wave functions clearly, the wave functions psi star and psi. In the second case it is psi and psi star. So if any operator satisfies the Hermitian conjugate condition, then that operator, the corresponding operator, is called Hermitian operator. So here this equation 1 is wrongly written, it should be the continuous equation. So if this condition is satisfied, then I can say that the operator A is Hermitian in nature. Now it is important to note that eigenvalues of whatever eigenvalues I will get from this operation is real in nature. Further, all the eigenfunctions, the two eigenfunctions are psi and phi in this case, the eigenfunctions of Hermitian operator are orthogonal in nature. Means if I do operate them, I will get a value of 0. Now postulate 3. We'll discuss postulate 3 in the next session. Thank you.